Katyn in light of international justice and what the handling of that crime at Nuremberg and what the results of that process have meant in the development of the tribunals that have followed and the demands for justice that are with us today, the lessons that we can draw for the project of criminal justice. Now my position, since September of 2009 as Ambassador at Large, working directly under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and working for the administration of President Obama, is to work on our American policy toward and in support of systems of accountability for mass atrocity across the globe. One of the greatest honors that I've had, I don't know if I'll ever have another, that moved me quite so much, was the opportunity to represent the United States of America. Now, I guess it's about 3 months ago, on the 65th anniversary of the opening of the Nuremberg trial. It had opened on 21 November, at least with the opening statement of Justice Jackson, and on November 21st, 2010, the city of Nuremberg had finally decided to build a museum. The Russians sent their foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. President Obama sent myself, the ambassador at large, for war crimes issues. And it was an occasion for me to talk about the historic importance of that trial. And many speak of it in different terms of what the Nuremberg legacy meant to them. But I quoted in particular the words of that eloquent opening of Justice Jackson, 65 years to the day before my speech, that said that the law shall not stop with the punishment of petty crimes by little people. It must also reach men who possess themselves of great power and make deliberate and concerted use of it to set in motion evils which leave no home in the world untouched. The great principle that no one is above the law. I said that day, and I was speaking in front of a German audience, and so I searched and found a quote from Goethe, and in speaking of the significance of what happened on November 21st, 1945, I compared it to what Goethe had said about an event that he had been an eyewitness of, the victory of a citizen French army, over the armies of old Europe, imperial and regal power in 1792. As he said, from this place and from this day forth began a new era in the history of the world. I believe that, and what was accomplished at Nuremberg, with its flaws, continues to resonate. John has talked specifically about the allegations and the indictment and how they were handled. And we've heard, of course, of the testimony of Justice Jackson himself in 1952. I, as a prosecutor, always reminded, because I hear it constantly in court, I heard it when I was a prosecutor of ordinary crimes, that accused will come to court and say, other people committed crimes. Why aren't they here? How dare you try me when there's guilty people out in the world? And except in very exceptional circumstances, that's no defense. It's no defense if we're picked up going 80, that somebody just passed us going 88. It's no defense that others have murdered when you bring a murderer to trial. The lesson of Nuremberg, however, is now resonating in international tribunals, those in which I and David Crane and Michael and his students and others are involved. And it resonates in tribunals that began to be established after the end of the Cold War, with with the horrendous atrocities that began to occur in places like the former Yugoslavia or in Rwanda and elsewhere. The principle of Nuremberg has resonated in the prosecution of atrocity crime, involving bringing major perpetrators to account in these later tribunals. Senior military leaders, militia leaders, persons who have great power within a state, as we had in Rwanda, not just the government, but also business leaders, also media leaders, also, in that case, even members of the clergy. There's also, of course, the hope of reconciliation. The hope that by bringing forth the truth, by recognizing that some people committed horrible crimes and other people were indeed victims, and by honoring that victimhood with a condemnation of those responsible, we make it possible for societies to reconstruct, for people to recognize that it's not everyone of that ethnic group that committed those crimes. There were leaders and others that made it happen. And that people, as human beings across ethnic and religious boundaries, can begin to build ties and to strengthen ties of common humanity and prevent the crimes from occurring again. We deal with the question of how to go forward, what kind of policy to push, how to accomplish justice. And I think what we've seen is that with Nuremberg, with these other tribunals whose work is ongoing, and some are closing, with the establishment of the ICC, now with 113 members, though not the United States, there has been created an expectation of justice, that there needs to be accountability. And even though it doesn't happen everywhere, even though in some places the butchers face consequences, in other places it's impossible to bring them to justice, what we've done is create the expectation that there should be justice. And so everywhere you go, people are saying, is our blood not red? Do our victims of mass atrocity not deserve justice? So everywhere where we can, where we have living victims and living witnesses and living accused, we're trying to establish a way to find out the truth and to have justice. The challenge, of course, is all of this creates the expectation that for those situations where there are few, if any, living victims, living direct victims, though later generations certainly suffer, and accused have gone beyond the age when they can sit in the dock, how to establish justice. We've heard Congresswoman Katyn's ideas about the crimes at Katyn. Very proud to be here with you and look forward in the situation of that great crime and others that continue to affect the living, continue to signal injustice to the victims, that we can find a way to establish the truth, identify all of those who suffered and those who were responsible. Thank you very much.